Hello and welcome to episode 98 of Learn, Do, Become Radio. I'm April Perry, and here at Learn, Do, Become, we help people who are drowning in the details of their personal or professional lives to create simple systems so we can all do what matters most. Today we are talking about how to make time to read. And I want today's podcast to have a massive impact on your life. Not specifically because of what I will share, but because it will hopefully give you an opportunity to reflect on what you want to learn, do, and become. I am confident that new ideas will come to you and that you'll have an increased understanding regarding how you can incorporate more great books into your life. All of the things I will be discussing will be in our show notes page, which is at learndobecome.com/episode 98. I'll have links to our Learn, Do, Become bookstore and our free class for our Steps to Everyday Productivity program and all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you visit the show notes page, but we'll go ahead and just dive in. Now, I know that I have a long way to go in my life, but that feels exciting to me. I have a lot to learn and so many areas in which I can improve, but that helps me to feel excited about life and less frustrated about my shortcomings. As I'm recording this, there is a lot of turmoil in the world. Now, we're months ahead on our podcasting schedule, so this is a little bit of a voice from the past. But given how history has gone and how I anticipate the future will go, I'm pretty sure that there will still be challenges when this airs. Now, to be honest, I'm concerned with what I see in the news. I feel compassion when I see struggles and tension and sickness and violence and fear, discouragement. I want to do a better job as a community member, as a wife and a mother, as a leader. And while I know that I will always fall short in one way or another, it is the continuous effort that I believe in. And that's why I'm recording today about how to make time to read. I get asked about it all the time, and I believe it is one of the habits that can truly lift our nation and our world. As I was preparing for this podcast, I first sat down and just listed a few reasons why I read, so I'll share them here. First, books light up my brain with ideas. They're like oxygen to me. They teach me in-depth skills for caring for myself, sleeping better, drawing closer to God, building a stronger marriage, raising a family, understanding others' perspectives, acknowledging where I'm weak, setting bigger goals, getting out of clutter, refining the way I use my time, building a business, overcoming anxiety, and developing greater empathy. Also, books create a calming feeling. When so many needs require me to be on my feet and moving from place to place, or when you go on social media and there's so much contention or so much going on, reading is an entirely different experience. I am sitting, I'm resting, and I'm letting my mind expand while my body has time to replenish. Books keep me in a forward-thinking mode. We all know how it feels to be in a rut, and we know how it feels to be paralyzed with fear or anxiety, but books lift me out of those feelings. They also provide incredible discussion topics. I'm not a small talk kind of person, and I don't want to talk about my hair or my nails or my waistline or any of the superficial things that we often use to define ourselves, but I feel like books elevate discussion. They bring thoughtful ideas and new perspectives into our everyday conversations. And it's not like we can't ever discuss the weather or tell someone we like their shirt, but my closest friends are those who want to talk at a deeper level. Books feel like friends. When I walk into a bookstore, I feel like I'm surrounded by thinkers. Because I feel like if someone took the time to collect and organize their thoughts and go through the tedious editing and refining process required to get to publication, which I understand because I've done it 3 times and it is a big deal, then I feel like their message must really matter to them. I feel honored to read their words and consider their ideas and see if my life can be benefited by their experiences. And maybe every book doesn't resonate with me, and maybe I might skim through a bit, and, of course I need to be discerning. But reading books feels like a way to skip past the fluff and get to the heart of what someone stands for. And maybe I should add, reading the best books are what do that for me. One of my favorite quotes about books says, "A room without books is like a body without a soul." That's from Marcus Cicero. I love that. I think of it all the time. And whenever I'm trying to organize a room, I'm thinking, where will we put the books? It's fun. Now, when we look at book reading in general, there are a variety of stats out there regarding how many or how few books people read each year, or how many people even read books after their high school or college graduations. And I couldn't find a stat that seemed totally accurate or current, but the main thing that I see over and over again is that reading books regularly is a rarity. Now, a lot of factors come into play. Literacy rates, educational opportunities, distraction because of digital devices, more content being consumed via audio or video resources, etc. And I don't have all of the information to comment intelligently on the state of reading in the whole world. But there are two key suggestions I want to cover that I believe will make a huge difference for you. So, suggestion number one, I want you to believe that books can help you solve your problems and improve your life. And I want you to believe that you need and deserve the time to invest in your learning. Suggestion number two, I'm encouraging you to create space in your life to receive your new knowledge, and I want you to create routines and projects to support your reading. I'm actually going to break this up into two separate audios because I really want you to have time to think about these principles and implement them. So for today's podcast, we'll go over how to really believe books can help you solve your problems. And we're going to start thinking about what our current challenges are and which books are going to help us. And then in the next podcast, we will talk about how to create that space in our lives, how to create the routines and projects, and discuss more of the logistics. The brightest minds read. Recently, I watched a Netflix documentary called Inside Bill's Brain, Decoding Bill Gates. My sister watched it and said it was awesome, and I watched it. Okay, he reads tons of books. Oh my goodness. His secretary would even prepare a huge bag of books for him to take on vacation, and then he would read through all of them. But he didn't just read on vacation. That's just when he had more time. Reading was a big deal. But reading isn't just for billionaires. Now, I acknowledge that no one really expected me to read when I was a young mother home with babies. And a friend even laughed at me for having a planner because she didn't know what I would write in it besides cook and clean. So the expectations that people had for me were pretty low. But I was incredibly inspired by the story of Lucretia Mott. She was one of the founders of the women's suffrage movement and a strong advocate for ending slavery. And while reading wasn't extremely common among her peers, she would lay out books in front of her while she accomplished her home duties. So she'd be like leaning over and reading books while she was doing other things that needed to be done. And I wanted to be like her. I love that. So, okay, let's go ahead and just dive in. Believing books can help you solve your problems and improve your life, and that you need and deserve that time to invest in your learning. Now for this section, I'm just going to share a little bit about my story, because I'm hoping as I share my story that you can think about yours and come up with ideas that are going to be helpful for you. I grew up with parents who loved to read. My dad usually had some kind of a history book, and my mom always had a book with her, usually a spiritual book or a diet book or something around self-improvement. I remember one that she loved was called You Can't Afford the Luxury of a Negative Thought. She talked about that book all the time. We regularly visited the library, and we had plenty of books in our home. My mom, whenever the door-to-door salesman would come by and have Power Tales where you would learn values, and they had audio tapes that went with the books, my mom bought all of those things. So we had the books on tape. And whenever we would go on a road trip, my dad would take us to the bookstore and let us pick out a couple of books that we got to buy to take with us. I think that happened a couple of times. But I love that books were encouraged and reading was encouraged. And that really meant a lot to me. But once I got into high school, I hardly read for fun. There was so much going on, and I preferred to be with my friends or involved in activities or talking on the phone. Plus, I had homework and other stuff that was taking up maybe more of my mental energy. But when it came time for college applications, I was embarrassed because one of the questions was, list the books that you read in the last year. And I had hardly anything, and the titles were embarrassing. I look back at my application, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how did they even look at that? What did they think of me? Like, I was not really reading for fun at all. So that's kind of this transition that I started making as I started getting older, where I wasn't turning to books as much as I wish I had. But my freshman year in college, I felt my mind expanding, and I wanted to build my mind and sincerely learn from the best books. Two that I remember having a big impact on me my freshman year in college were Stephen Covey's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People and Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. Now, as I was reading books, I know I used to get the paperback ones that fit in my classic Franklin planner, and I would take the books apart and hole punch them and then just keep a few pages in my planner at a time so I could read while I was on the go or waiting in line or something like that. That actually was really effective back in the day when I had a big planner. Another little experience that came to mind, I was studying for finals, and it was like winter finals right before our Christmas break. And it was dark outside and I was overwhelmed and I had so much homework. And I remember my sister Laura called, and she told me she'd been reading the book called Success is a Choice. I think she'd seen it at Barnes & Noble, and she said it was amazing. She was on fire. She'd taken notes and she was reading me what she'd read. And I remember feeling her energy around that book, and I felt totally motivated. Later, I got the book and just loved it. And I remember thinking, wow, like reading this book helped me have more focus during my finals, helped me feel more excited about what I was doing to shape my mind and to reach for success. And I just remember the power that several of those books that I read as I was away at college, the power that they had in my life. Now, my sophomore year of college, I was kind of struggling with that freshman 15. I'd been eating at the dorm cafeteria and gained some weight and felt just not great. And I remember getting some books that were helping me to eat more healthfully. And I was reading about all kinds of new recipes and information about nutrition. And it had a huge impact on the way that I looked at food. I remember going to the grocery store after reading this one particular book. And the way I looked at the food on the conveyor belt at the grocery store wasn't the same. It was like, wow, this is the fuel for my body. This is literally what's going to go into my cells. And this is what's going to give me energy. I just remember how it completely changed my perspective. So then I wasn't ever going to get Slurpees or a lot of junk food because I just wanted to nourish my body. And that was the power of a book. When Eric and I got married, we had hardly any money. We were both students, and it was a tight time. But I could tell immediately that he valued books. I remember we went to our school bookstore and we bought How to Become a Gentleman and Emily Post's book on etiquette. We wanted to shape our family, and it was just fun. As we were together, I thought, really? Like, we're going to buy books? We could just go to the library or something. But he wanted to start building our library. I think we bought those books either right when we were married or even when we were engaged. And I remember Christmas, our first year of marriage, I got him a set of beautifully bound books that he'd been wanting. It was the most expensive possession in our apartment. We had this old 13-inch TV his parents had given us, but those books, we had them on a shelf, and they were beautiful and treasures, and we still have them today. When we moved out and got our first apartment, bookshelves, or our first non-student furnished apartment, bookshelves were among our first pieces of furniture. We still have those 4 bookshelves today, and we couldn't wait to fill them. We were so excited. We said, we're buying these books. We're going to build our own little library. And it was fun, and it was exciting, and it was something that we really valued. And seeing his enthusiasm for books helped me as well to validate my desire to be able to purchase books and build a library and invest time reading. We've always valued that together. But I think my real love for books, like my true deep love for books, started when I became a mother. because I was sinking. I was having a really, really hard time. I think I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but I had just left the world of academia. I just graduated from college. Eric and I are in a brand new place. He's working full time. I'm home with a baby. And I had so much time and energy that was not being utilized. Like, we didn't have a TV. We didn't have an extra car. I didn't have the internet really back then. We didn't have social media or podcasts. Like, it was just a really, really hard time. And I was probably as close to being depressed as I've ever been in my life. It was just incredibly hard. And I remember during that time, I went to the library and I started something called my knowledge binder, where I was going to record what I was learning. And at the library, I checked out every book I could find about motherhood and womanhood. Now, some of them I loved and some with which I totally disagreed, but these books made me think about this role. I mean, I was excited to be a woman and to be able to be a mother, but it was hard and I needed help and I needed wisdom. I needed advice. I needed some kind of lifeline. But I learned during that time to discern which voices helped me to feel more joy and peace and purpose, and then which books were not leading me in the direction I wanted in my life. You know, as you read, you can tell, do I want to be more like this person, or is this the opposite direction where I want to go? And as I progressed through motherhood and as more children came into our family and as they got older, I would take them to the library to get their books. And then we would always go over to my section so I could get books for myself. And every time as I would get a stack of books, I would just imagine all of the wonderful things that they would bring into my life. Now, Eric and I continued to add books to our library. We bought a few books a year when our budget was tight. But it was a relief to know that even though we didn't have a lot of money, we could still be strengthened by books. And I am so grateful for the bookstores that let us just go and sit on the floor by the book stacks and just read, because we did so many date nights at the bookstores. And now we do purchase more of the books, but back then we were just grateful to have access to them. Now, in 2009, I read the book called Getting Things Done by David Allen, which has been one of the most influential books I have ever read. Prior to reading Getting Things Done, I felt overwhelmed whenever I learned new ideas. My mind couldn't hold them all, and I had piles of notes and a bunch of random thoughts that felt like they would never see the light of day. And I was overwhelmed consistently with my responsibilities, trying to raise a family, trying to manage all of the things in our home, and just trying to make things work in general. But Getting Things Done taught me that I could create a system to organize my mind. And when I read that book, a light bulb went on. And that book and the framework that I built in order to implement it with a busy family was the basis for what we have as our Steps to Everyday Productivity program today. And that's where you can learn more at learndobecome.com/step program. And we'll have a link on our show notes page as well. But I see that time as pivotal in my life because I essentially learned how to make my mind like a vacuum where I could read and record way more information than ever before, but it didn't overwhelm me because the information all went into a system. And I then realized that reading meant a lot more to me if I was reading for other people as well. So in that time, as I was learning how to assimilate information and as I started thinking outward, as I would go to select a book, I would think, okay, is this knowledge that I'm going to learn in this book going to help me serve other people? Are there ideas I can record and share that will save other people time and help them to get results faster? Because I recognize that not everyone likes to read, or maybe not everyone has the time or energy right now to read, or maybe it's just easier sometimes with so much going on to have someone share. So I started doing that. And that became really something that made reading feel not only like an enjoyable pastime or a way to educate myself, but a way to serve. Now, books have literally changed my life and my business and my health, my family. Every single problem that I have had has been alleviated through the power of good books. I mean, I think back to my life. I think about how I used to starve myself when I was like 9 years old to lose weight. And then that was my strategy. If I ever want to lose weight, I would just go hungry. I think about not getting along in my family relationships and really being stressed, and how books help me learn how to discipline and how to take care of our children with love, and how to be more communicative in our marriage and be able to build our marriage, how to set boundaries for myself in relationships where I was struggling, how to actually think bigger when it came to education and building a business and finances, how to humble myself more and recognize my weaknesses so that I could invite God more into my life. I can't even tell you, like, there are so many things that I really struggled with, like anxiety. I had anxiety issues since I was super young, and now it's like really not a problem. And it's because of books. And so I even just get a little choked up thinking about it, because my life felt really hard in a lot of ways, just in different areas where I was really weak and not doing well. And these books lifted me. And I just think about all these voices that I had saying, it's okay, you can do it, keep up the good work. Here's what you're going to do. Here's what you're going to try next. And here's another way to think about it. And all these people who reached into my heart and said, you don't need to give up. It was so worth the time that I put into reading, because that support was huge. Okay. And now, looking forward, I can't wait to see where the books I read in the future will take me. Because even as I'm recording this, I recognize that there are a lot of things that you could criticize me for very accurately. You could say, oh, I don't like April because she does this or this or this. And I would probably agree with you and say, you are right. I am not perfect and I struggle, and I could be accurately criticized and I would not fight you on it. I'll tell you that right now. But when I think, okay, well, then what book would be helpful for me to read? And I've had people in our community who will say, hey, I think you need to read this book. And I so appreciate it, because I start reading it and I think, oh my goodness, they probably could sense my struggle in this area through the podcast or something like that. And how kind of them to send me the book. So I really will never take offense if you send me a book recommendation. I think that that's actually a really kind way to help lift another person. So if you have book recommendations, if you just send it to books@learndobecome.com, I will say thank you. Okay. All right. So I want you to ask yourself, what are the challenges that you are currently facing? I know we're all facing some challenges. What are you facing? And what books could help you in this specific situation? Okay. All right. Now, it's not always easy, obviously, and sometimes it will take some serious searching. Sometimes I feel like I have to plow through a few terrible books before I find the right ones. But that perseverance has made a difference, and I know it can for you as well. All right. Hope today's podcast has been helpful for you. If you go to our show notes page, learndobecome.com/episode 98, you can see links to some of our favorite books. You can see a link to our free class, or you can just go to learndobecome.com/step. And we would just love to be able to have you subscribe to the podcast, rate and review it if you would, and then also make sure that you join our weekly email list so you can get updates on our podcast and updates on all the fun stuff going on here at Learn to Become. Have an amazing day, and we'll see you soon at learndobecome.com.